I think we need to acknowledge this race to the bottom culture that I've been seeing in a lot of the comment section recently. I made a lot of videos speaking about working, both in the UK and in a lot of the world, and how people feel about it in today's day and age. How a lot of workers feel like their money goes less far, how a lot of workers feel like it's not worth it. And we get a lot of people in the comments of these videos who agree. A lot of people agree. But we do get a lot of people who think, well, times were the same in this time in the past, or worse. And I agree to some extent. Where I think a lot of people have a problem acknowledging this is looking at how living conditions have either not moved very much, in some ways moved down slightly, in some ways moved up slightly, in a period of 50 plus years. I know it's still very possible in a lot of parts of the country to have a reasonable life on a reasonable wage. And I know a lot of people are poor or poorer than they need to be based on unnecessary lifestyle inflation. I am very well aware that there is an argument for both sides, and nobody is against that. The thing where I think a lot of people have a problem, and it's very difficult to make a video like this because I want to be as neutral as possible whilst also acknowledging the facts and then giving a bit of my opinion at the end. I think based on all the comments that I've seen, the thing that people have a problem with is the disproportionate way that wealth is being distributed in today's modern age. It's all well and good when we look back at the 70s and say things were the same or slightly better or slightly worse. But look at how the country is getting richer since. That's great. However, look not at my opinions, but at the statistics, at the facts. How the amount of productivity put in by a worker has increased significantly due to technology and all sorts of different developments, but how pay has not kept up. That's one thing, right? But then look at these facts, like how high corporate profits have been for the last couple of years, how high stock markets in a lot of markets have been for the last couple of years. Look at what proportion of the country's wealth the top 10%, the top 1% take home versus the bottom 10%, the bottom 50% even, sometimes even the bottom 70%. This is where people get mad. This is where people get angry. This is where people get divided on this issue. Because, to an extent, a lot of people do like to moan. Like I say, we can move to cheaper parts of the country. Like I say, we can make money online as well. Like I say, we can invest. We can stop buying stupid things that we don't need. But anybody with an understanding on these topics, who will not take my opinion, not listen to my videos, but just go on the internet and look at the distribution of wealth. Look at how much more companies are making versus the workers. This is where people are getting mad. Richer people, companies, are taking home more than ever, proportionally. Asset owners are getting richer, and I know that is a fair capitalist market at the heart of it. But at the same time, then we've got things like taxes, which in a lot of ways are disproportionately paid by the working class. And when I say working class, I don't mean people who work in factories, I mean people who work. Bear in mind, a lot of people will become traditionally wealthy based on asset inflation and asset price increases. These people might be subject to different taxes like capital gains taxes rather than income taxes, which could make their tax bills lower. And this is where even I get slightly annoyed, to bring my opinion into it, right? I don't care. Overall, over everything, I don't care about that much to do with these sorts of topics. I want to bring awareness to it through these channels and these videos, but if I can have a nice or nice enough quality of life, be that through online businesses, be that through other streams of work, great. But to look at this fairly, we need to look at the truth of it. And like I say, the truth of it is this is unevenly distributed. And this idea that it's okay because living conditions were the same 40, 50 years ago. Yeah, there is some truth to it, but the country is getting richer in a lot of ways. Why is so much of our money going to big business? Why is so much of our money go into the top 1%? Why do workers get less in a lot of markets, not in all jobs, of course? Why have the average worker's pay gone up by something like, 100, 200% in the last 20 to 50 years, but or even perhaps longer than that, but the average CEO pay has gone up something like 1,300%. Look these facts up, right? And I don't say this to say, well, we need to distribute it. This is obviously capitalism. It's the reality of it. But at the same time, why do we have companies which are worth billions or trillions of dollars paying little to no taxes in a lot of cases? Why do we have people who make hundreds of thousands, if not millions, paying proportionally lower taxes than the poorer people in some cases? I know some people will object to this and cite this example or that example, but I think this is where people get super angry, and I think it's where the argument in a lot of cases may become a little bit ignorant. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm being ignorant on this topic myself. I've said this before, but my videos are just opinions a lot of the time. You can look at the facts that I mentioned, but a lot of the videos are opinions. Just because I'm some guy talking on the internet doesn't mean that I'm necessarily always right. At the same time, I'm sharing what I've heard from people in the comments. And look at my recent videos on these topics. They've had a lot of comments, they get a lot of views, and I just want to speak on this again. So I just think when we think about these topics, and speak about them, we need to think more carefully on the realities for a lot of people. And I've never understood this race to the bottom mentality. This, we had it hard so you should, or we had these issues so you should. As a society, as humans, as a culture, should we not always be moving forwards? Should we not always be aspiring to better and increase living conditions and happiness? And maybe that's just a super soft, entitled view on it, as I've been told a few times. But it's, to me, not entertaining funny, but it's funny strange, the fact that those who produce so much of the labour are struggling more as time goes on, over the weeks, over the months, over the decades. Look at the cost of living crisis, look at who it's affecting the most. And this is where I also want to draw a correlation, because I know people who are in this position. I've heard people in the comments, I've seen it. People have this idea that someone on 70, 100, 150k is rich. But in today's market, that's not actually that true. If they're doing everything by the books, they get taxed X amount to begin with, which obviously brings it down so much. And yes, there is going to be a degree of lifestyle inflation in these people's lives, but I'm not saying that these people are going to be poor. I'm not saying that I've got necessarily much sympathy for them, but if you're making like 100k, I'm sure you're in the top whatever percent, but you're still in probably the bottom 90%. You still probably have to go out and work for your money, probably work quite hard, doing mentally or sometimes even physically demanding tasks. You're a worker, like the guy who works in the shop, like the guy who works on the road. It doesn't matter if you're on minimum wage or high wages. This is the issue that I see in my comment section that angers most people the most. The fact that the money is being disproportionately shared out. Not even shared out, it's being disproportionately, distributed, and most of us guys who actually produce the labour are the ones missing out on it the most. It's an increasingly unequal society, and people who say, well, we should just suck it up. Why are we participating in this race to the bottom to completely exaggerate and continue the increase in inequality and make positions worse for all of us? I don't know why we're so happy to do this. The fact of the matter is, houses are not being built at the pace that they need to be built at. The fact of the matter is, taxes are making people poorer and poorer. The fact of the matter is, a lot of companies in 23, 24 are making record profits. Record profits. So I do not, maybe I'm just uneducated, but I do not understand these people who are of the mindset that, well, you should just completely suck it up. In a lot of ways, we are where we are, and that's just the truth of it. A lot of things have gone up in production costs, a lot of things are rising just because of supply and demand, there are a lot of increased challenges in today's world, and no one can deny that. But at the same time, why is there such a market of people who are so determined in saying that your fellow person, your fellow relatively poor person, the worker, the student, the young person, the old person, the minimum wage, the 100k, is the problem, when none of us are the problem? You, me, and everybody else who's probably watching this, think about it like a pyramid or a triangle. If you're watching this, this is like the 1% up here, right? I know I've not got it to draw, but just imagine. We're all in this percentage. We need to be together in this big base. Why are people so determined on pointing out this person's a problem or this group of persons? Are we not thinking?